Welcome. I'm Dorothy Cummings. This is CDNY's Country Dance Lore. We have a program to be led by Cynthia Shaw and Margaret Bary. They are doing a musical dialogue, speaking and music. What a great combination for people who love English country dance. The format should be familiar by now to many who have been here, but I will go through what the steps are because I like method. 7:30, here we are doing welcome and announcements. At 7:40, Margaret and Cynthia will begin the presentation, and they'll pause at 8:10 for any collected questions, which go into the chat box. Then we'll do some socializing after that. We ask you to remain muted during the presentation. You've seen at the top or bottom of your screen, if you hover your cursor, you'll get this little bar in Zoom, and here's the mute button. This week, please go off video. It will help keep your screen clear and everyone else's screen clear. And I will go through the next stage of what that is. This is just to help us keep both Cynthia and Margaret on the screen at the same time. So if you stop video, that will help this week. If you wish, you can do this by selecting Gallery View in Zoom, that's up in the top right corner. Then select Gallery View under View there. You can, if you wish, also select in View, same area, Hide Non-Video Participants. And this is how you clear your screen of everybody but the two speakers. It's a little tricky today because we want the side-by-side of two people, but everybody who's watching to be off camera. So again, that clears the screen of everybody but the presenters. We ask you to type any questions you've got into the chat box. We will collect those and pose them to our presenters at the end, at the Q&A time. This session is being recorded. It is also being streamed to Facebook. The recording will be posted in a couple of places. Facebook automatically records, so it just remains there. It should be findable there on the CDNY page. We also, thank you, Jeff Barry, are collecting them and putting them onto YouTube at this link, which we will also stick into the chat box. It is also findable, grabbable on cdny.org. And if you go to cdny.org and look on the calendar, you'll find a lot of the details of events as we go through from week to week. Other announcements. If you have feedback, please send them to me at englishprogram@cdny.org. I just got a nice recommendation from Cynthia, who was in the waiting room with me before the call, about stuff to do in the future. And I definitely want to know, as your English program chair for CDNY, if desired, you can make a donation to CDNY at cdny.org/give. I'm Dorothy Cummings. I'm hosting on Zoom. And I would like to thank Jeff Barry, volunteering. He is hosting on Facebook. He is actually CDNY conference on your screen. Danny Walkowitz, thank you so much for running the door and letting people know what to expect while they're in the waiting room and collecting questions. I'm putting this up a little bit sooner because we have a slightly different format this week, and my slideshow is going to go away and we will just see people. So I want to announce 2 weeks from now, the next event will be led by Daniel Popowich, and that's Thursday, December 3rd. And that topic is music theory for country dancers. Later on, hopefully I can get him to tell you a little about what that is. But meantime, our main event, Margaret Bary and Cynthia Shaw are here to have a dialogue discussing the synergy between English country dance and its music. What is it that adds up between the movement and the music that helps to make the whole greater than the sum of its parts and just make our hearts sing? With that, I want to hand it over to Cynthia and Margaret. I am going to stop sharing, and it's just going to be those two on the screen. Again, please go off camera and mute.
Welcome, everyone. It's so nice to see, well, I briefly got to see friendly faces out there, and we'll see more of you later. So today, Cynthia and I will be delving into the connection between music and dance. As we've had time at home over the last few months, this seemed like a really nice opportunity to dig in and really think about the music. So Cynthia and I have had a few conversations, and this is going to be a continuation of those conversations, and we'll try to remember things we've said in the past, and we might think of some new things today. It's in flux. It's not an end all, and we're open to questions and other thoughts. We'll look at 3 dances and tunes and how they fit together. And you can listen. There's some opportunities towards the end of each dance where you can hear the whole tune through, and you can envision the figures in your mind, or if you want to get up and dance, you're welcome to as well. After we talk about 3 of the dances, we'll pause for questions, and then we have one extra. So if we don't have a lot of questions and if time permits, we'll go on to one more dance we have in our pocket. So we look for dances that make our hearts soar. And the first dance we are talking about is Mile of Smiles, which of course has a smile right in the title. And this is a dance by Joseph Pimentel, and a tune by Dave Weisler that's dedicated to Dave's mother, who grew up on a farm in Indiana called Mile of Smiles. Joseph's notes about the dance are keep it regal and allow the figures to be expansive to fit the phrasing. And Cynthia and I had a little back and forth because sometimes regal didn't feel like lively enough to me. And I think of this as a real joyful and vigorous dance. So this is a vigorous regal dance. And among other reasons that this dance is really so satisfying is that there are opportunities for all 4 dancers to interact. So you interact with your partner, your corner, all 4 together, and there's a playfulness about it. So the dance begins in the A section with the corners meeting, turn single, and a 2-hand turn. This is a fairly standard sequence that we do see in other dances, such as Wooden Shoes. In the Spaniard, there's a little twist to it. And then, of course, in Draper's Gardens, we have it in triple time. But then in the B section, there's a chase, which leads us into something a little less standard. And again, by the end, we're all in a star together. The end of the dance, when we turn single, launches the first corners back into the beginning. And that's something else that Cynthia and I have been noting is a really key to wonderful dances that end and then begin. The tune is in duple time, 2/2, with 2 steps per measure. And Cynthia will play it for you now.
Here's the B.
Well, I think that's a nice combination of energy and regalness. The first thing I noticed about this tune is that the A section, you have 3 repeats of this distinctive rhythm, ba da 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 da, and then it varies a little from there. But that call ba da 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 da, that hits the same notes and it gets our attention, and we we move expansively into the set, turn, single, and then the two-hand turn. The end of that phrase tells us to release hands and sail home. Do you want to just play that little part of the tune? There's one. There's two. There's three. And that's the sail home.
Should I talk a little bit about the music itself? Yeah, so one thing that musicians think about a lot is the form of the pieces. And this piece, there's this idea of short, short, long, where you have two short phrases and then a long phrase. And let me just show that to you. So we have two short phrases. Here are the two short ones. That's the first one. Here's the second one. And then we have a long phrase. The other thing that we have in here is we have kind of a question and answer. So the question is brought about by the first four phrases, and then it's answered by the second four phrases, still using that same dun da da da, da that theme, right? So listen for that. Here's the question. And here's the answer. And what's great about that is that the movement of the dance actually matches that in the same way. So that's why there's a kind of synergy between the music and the choreography and the music, which is really awesome.
Thank you, Cynthia. And so when we go into the B section, I noticed that the dance is smoother and the music seems to support the flow. There's a chase. So one partner casts and the other partner follows into second place. That's for the ones. Later, the twos will do that as well. So that moment of chase is for the partner connection, and then the partners reach back above them for the right-hand turn with their neighbors. There's a flow over all four bars.
Yeah, and what's really great, we're doing just the four bars. Yeah. So the four bars, there's the same thing. Anyway, you'll hear it. Here's the flowing part. So it kind of resolves itself in a beautiful way, actually. The melody does, and so does the dancing.
Yeah, there's this moment with the partner, the first two bars, and then you come back to the corner, who's now your neighbor. And then the twos do the same thing, but it's different. There's a twist on it, and the music reflects that as well.
So at the end of this is the second B, and at the end of the second B, there's a change. And I was telling Margaret, what's really great about it is that this particular change leads us back to the beginning of the tune, the beginning of the dance, the beginning of everything, and it kind of prepares everyone for that, not just physically, but also musically. So here's the second B. And here's the difference. So you hear that change.
Yeah, and you talked a little about how a melody can tell you it's coming to an end.
Right, and you hear that in the second B, because the chord changes, even though we have the same melody, but because the chord changes, it tells you that the dance is coming to an end. You can kind of resolve at the end, kind of have a breather, and then it starts up again. So I'll play the second B, and you can listen for it. Here it is. So just that little change is enough to tell us, oh, it's over and we're going to start again.
And the dancers do a right-hand star halfway and then have a moment, only a moment, to glance at your partner before the turn single. So there's a little partner connection, but in this dance, you're not dancing with your partner throughout. It's really between your partner, the corner, the foursome. It's a very satisfying ending. And as I mentioned before, it launches the first corners into the next round of the dance.
So even though this tune is actually repetitive in many, many ways, which we oftentimes in the band, if something is too repetitive, we call it a dippy dance. So dippy dance. But this tune is not a dippy dance because there are all these subtle changes that match the dancing that actually make perfect sense. So it's not a dippy dance at all. Thank you, Dave Wiesler. So should I play it again?
Yeah, so we'll listen to the whole tune through once more so you could hear how it all fits together now that we broke it down. And this is your chance. You could either visualize it. I'll fill you in a little bit to remind you of some of the figures, or you could get up and dance along, whichever figures you feel like. So the dance, remember the A part is first corner set, turn single, two-hand turn, and then the second corners do the same. And here comes the chase for the ones. And right hand with neighbor. And for the twos. Right hand star. Turn single. Lovely. Thank you, Cynthia.
You're welcome.
Well, that dance always makes me smile. It's just very joyful and energizing. And I think it's really nice in the beginning towards the beginning of a program, not necessarily the first dance, but a chance to meet other people and interact. Anything else you want to say, or shall we go on?
Yeah, let's go on. I think that was really great.
Okay. So our second dance is a sublime partner dance, Autumn in Amherst. The choreography is Philippe Callens. The music is Kathy Talvity, the Red Star Line. In this dance, the music and dance feel like they're telling a story. You kind of go on a journey. Everyone is moving throughout with a slight pause during the corner crossings. We're dancing harmoniously in our minor sets, our group of fours, and then with the entire set at the end, when we all dance forward a double in columns up and down the hall. So Philippe choreographed the dance to Kathy Talvity's tune, The Red Star Line. And we're going to take a little time to talk about the Red Star Line. Cynthia has a little story.
So about 6 or 7 years ago, I was hired to play a dance weekend in Belgium. And so after we played the dance weekend, then David and I stayed for another week, and we went to a couple of different cities, Bruges, and one of the cities we went to was Antwerp. And the Red Star Line is actually in Antwerp, which I didn't know at all. And there's a museum there where the Red Star Line used to be housed. And what I found out is that the Red Star Line was a shipping company that shipped immigrants, mostly from Eastern Europe, to Ellis Island. But because this was, in the, I don't know the exact year, somebody else knows better than me, but the people that came to the Red Star Line to come to the United States, oftentimes they were poor people, they were sick people, they had terrible hygiene, their clothes were terrible, they had diseases, all this stuff. And because the Red Star Line didn't want to have them go on the boats to America and then get to Ellis Island and be turned away and sent back, right? Because that costs a lot of money. They became a kind of clearinghouse for people and a way for people to clean up. They had doctors there. They had places for people to stay, quarantine places for people. They would wash their clothes. They would make sure that they didn't have any diseases or anything. So it, in a funny kind of way, it became kind of a social services place for all of these poor immigrants, Eastern European mostly, that wanted to come to the United States. So and if you ever go to Antwerp, go to the Red Star Museum, because they have all these testimonials and people's stories and of their trips and going there. So it's really an amazing place.
And it turns out Philippe is also familiar with this museum. And I spoke with Kathy Talvity last week to find out a little more about the story behind the dance and how the music got its title. So in 2002, Kathy's bands, A Joyful Noise and Hold the Mustard, which overlap, recorded a collection of Philippe's dances from his first two books. He was there also for the recording sessions, and titled the CD, The Red Star Line from Belgium to America, because of the collaboration between Philippe in Belgium and the band in America. So it was his idea. A little coincidence is Daniel from the band, Daniel Bierbaum, later discovered that his grandmother had actually emigrated to America on the Red Star Line.
I love that.
Yeah. Kathy notes that the reason you feel the palpable connection between the music and dance, because I talked to her about the way I feel about the dance, are the circumstances. They had just finished recording the Red Star Line, and she was feeling really emotional about it. And she wrote the tune as a thank you to Philippe and the musicians Barbara Greenberg, Daniel Bierbaum, and Paul Prestopino. For her, it's a hymn of celebration. So Kathy recorded the tune on a cassette and she mailed it off to Philippe. Philippe at the time was driving around New England in a rental car, and the cassette turned out to be the only music he had in the car. So he listened to it quite a bit. And then he was inspired to write the dance in honor of the Amherst dance community. Autumn and Amherst then became the core of their second project together, which was called Seasons of Invention. And the book and CD are both available through the CDSS store. They're really wonderful if you don't have them in your collection. So getting to the dance and the music, for me, the dance follows the rise and fall of the melody line. There's moments of anticipation as the melody rises, and then settling into contentment as it falls again. Philippe's directions are the tune should be played flowingly and lyrically, but without letting it falter. And Kathy made a point of that as well when she talked to me about the music. This tune is also in 2/2, but unlike Mile of Smiles, there's 4 steps per measure. So here's the tune. It's beautiful, Cynthia.
Thank you. I was telling Margaret about this tune. In the other tune, we talked about short, short, long, like these short little phrases leading to a long phrase. But this one doesn't have that. This one really just continues with this long, long straight line. And it doesn't ever resolve itself in a funny kind of way. It like cadences, and a cadence is when you come to the end of a section, like the end of a paragraph, I would say. So it never really cadences. The cadences kind of are sort of there, but then they go on to something else. So that we always feel this kind of like it's like this overlap, like things are finishing, but at the same time they're continuing. And the melody does that too. Like if I can I play just a little bit of it, so that you'll hear it just keeps going, and it causes the dancers to want to keep going too. Here would be the cadence, but no, it goes on. Even here, no, it keeps going. So that you never have, that's why this has this forward kind of motion. And it's really only at the very, very end, I'll play the total end. That's really the first time that you have a moment to take a little bit of a breath before it starts up again. So it's really awesome in that way.
Now let's talk a little more about the breath. So the dance, the choreography begins with a step and honor. So to me, the opening bars have that moment of settling, take a breath, honoring your partner before the turn single.
Mm-hmm. So you have. And then you go on. Yeah, exactly.
The next thing I noticed about the melody is that right there where we left off at the beginning of the third bar, the melody jumps an octave. So there's this lightness to it, this elation, and that's the moment that you join left hands with your partner for the left hand turn.
So an octave, if no one knows what an octave is like from a low A to a high A. So there's a kind of sense of elevation when a melody does that. So I'll play it from the beginning. Here it is. So you kind of hear that da 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 da. Yeah.
It continues, and there's another point. It rises up as you circle as a group of four, and then as you fall back with your neighbor at the end of the A is where the melody descends again, and that's where there's a little breath, but it doesn't falter there. It
Not
keeps
very
going.
much. A little baby breath. Here's the last part of the A, so you can just hear that. Let me just give you 4.
Halfway and fall back with your neighbor.
And then it starts up again, right? So it's da 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 da.
And that keeps moving right into the corner crosses. That's the one place there's a little pause as one corner cross and then the other. And then the part, we're into the B now, and your partners join hands for the draw poussette. For me, this is the tenderest moment in the dance. And I also feel that in the music before the more climactic ending.
Right. So here's the B. Yeah.
And then this is the moment where we come together as a whole room and we surge forward up and down the hall, the columns, as the melody rises up.
Right. So we have, here it is. So you hear that da 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 da. There's that big surge right there.
Surging, and we fall back in the lines, and then there's just another little moment. And this again, similar to A Mile of Smiles, where we had that moment of eye contact with our partner before the turn single, here too, we have a moment to glance at our partner before we cast right. We're casting in parallel with our partner, so we're kind of in sync. It's a real feeling of unity. and the melody peaks there and then settles down for the final cross into our progressed places. This spot moment that we often talk about as the callers.
Yeah, I'll just play it a little bit. And then it resolves. One thing that Margaret and I were talking a lot about, and I think about this a lot when I play for dances, is that when you play for dances, you have to, as a musician, that there's a kind of like the music is leading the dancing, but the dancing is leading the music. And that as the dancers have to breathe at certain places or have to move forward at certain places, the musicians have to do that too with the dancing. I mean, sorry, with the music. That they kind of travel together, so that when there's a breath for the dancers, the musicians have the breath too. And so that when that happens within the music and the dancing, that's when everybody feels totally satisfied, because we're all on the same page, we're all breathing together, we're all moving together. And I mean, to me, that's really the beauty of English country dance music, is that the tunes are specific for the dance, right? And so when they're written that way, they really match the rise and fall of the music. So anyway, I mean, this tune to me really exemplifies that, because of the movement of the tune and the dancing that goes along with it.
I feel that too.
Yeah.
So let's listen one more time so we can hear the whole, feel the ebb and flow, feel that sense of breath. Again, you're welcome to stand up if you'd like to embody it in your own body, or you can just envision the dance. The opening of the dance is partners step and honor, turn single left hand turn with their partner, right hand turn with your neighbor.
There you go.
Corner crossing. Forward a double. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Cynthia. Should we go on?
Sure.
Okay, we'll do one more and then we'll take questions and have more of a dialogue. And we can go back to any of these if you have further thoughts that you'd like to delve into. So our third dance that we chose is also a Dave Weisler tune. The dance is Mary Kay. Choreography is Gary Rudman. And the music is part of Scherzo in C minor. So this energetic dance is dedicated to the memory of a lovely dancer from the DC community, Mary Kay Friday. The story goes that, and Dave told this story recently on 5 Things for those of you who've been watching the wonderful Tuesday night series. So Gary heard Dave's recording of Scherzo in C minor from his Cracks and Shadows CD. It was playing in the Pinewoods bookstore, and Gary asked Dave if he could adapt a section of this tune for his dance. Well, Dave took a look at the dance and noted that Gary's dance was just an A and B, but the tune had 4 sections, so he didn't really see how it would fit together. His solution, he suggested to Gary, was that he could combine the C and D if Gary could work out a third part. And Gary then choreographed the Petit Fours, which became the most memorable part of this dance, I think. The tune is in triple time in C minor.
Okay, here we go.
It's good we had some warm-up music to play before this one.
Exactly, exactly.
So in the beginning of this dance, what I love is that big cast and orbit around the set, ending in a quick two-hand turn. You actually have 3 bars for the cast and orbit, and then just 1 bar, 3 steps for the two-hand turn. But often people are worried that they're not going to get there in time, and I find that I'm often reminding people to just wait for it, that it's so satisfying. And actually the music really tells you where that hand turn is.
Yeah, and what's really great about this particular tune is that all throughout the melody in the A section, the A and the B section, is that there's a rest on the downbeat. And the downbeat is a place like the beginning of the measure, like da da da. So oftentimes that's why people feel compelled to clap on that downbeat. So if I didn't play my left hand, you would hear this. Sorry, let me do it again. I can't play, sorry. So there's a rest, right? So musicians usually play the downbeat because but it causes that kind of, or creates, I shouldn't say causes, but it creates that kind of propulsion, almost like you're jumping off of a diving board. Ba-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da, and you can hear that. Bum, bum. Which is just so awesome. And it creates a kind of energy. And oftentimes, because of the rest, we don't even realize that that's what's happening. It's really the music that's pushing us.
It's such a distinctive pattern and rhythm that it's very easy for our body to sense it. It happens 3 times, and then you meet either it's your partner or your neighbor later for the two-hand turn.
Right.
And you don't have to count 9 steps or beats. You feel it. And that allows time to do this really full orbit, which that's why often we talk about overlapping with the neighboring minor set, because you want to make it big and not just a little orbit around the set.
Well, and also you want to create the orbit in such a way that you meet your partner at the exact right moment. Right? That's really when the magic happens.
So the B section, we talked about how here it becomes lyrical. This is the connecting link between the A section and the C, which are more dynamic. And here we have simple figures that allow for some recuperation and connection between all 4 dancers. So we circle, fall back, cross over, rights and lefts. And again, on Tuesday, if you were listening to Jenny Beer and 5 Things, she talked about good choreography having some sections with standard figures to balance the new or unusual figures. And I think this is a perfect example of that.
Mm-hmm. So, and yet it still keeps that feeling of the rest on the downbeat. So there's still that a little bit of tension, but within the calmness. It's like the calm before the storm. Here it is. And then we're off to the races. And then I'll let Margaret talk more about that. But you can feel that transition, right? And this is when everybody gets all excited because they know it's going into the pedophores.
You also talked about the question and answer here again.
Oh, right. So here's the question and answer because we have the same music twice. Here's the question. Sorry. That's the question, and here's the answer. So the answer like leads us to the next section, which is like so cool.
And at the very end of this B section, that's your two-hand turn with your partner, and you open up. If you're ones, you face up. If you're twos, you face each other. And that is such a key moment in the dance because it launches you into the last section. And there's this wonderful sense of anticipation before the petite four.
Exactly. And so in the petite four, even though Margaret and I talked about this because in the petite four, it's actually squares, right? We create squares and then we undo the squares as dancers. But the music actually is this rising line. And I was telling Margaret about being at the beach and the ocean and how you, when there's a big wave coming, there's a bunch of small waves that come first and then they lead to the big wave. And you can feel that in this because you have this sort of rising line and it creates this tension. And yet at the same time, everyone's dancing in this kind of Marshallin kind of way. So it's a beautiful combination. So here's the C section. And then we know we're going back to the beginning, right? Then da 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 ba da da ba ba da, which is really awesome.
Because it's rising up.
Right. It starts.
You have this sense that you've gotten home after you complete your first square, and then it's time for the second square. But they're very distinct. And again, the music itself tells you when you should be back.
Exactly. Because the first time, the first square goes. That's the first, and then here's the second one, and then it starts again. And then it goes back to the beginning. Yeah. So you really go from a low G all the way to a high B. So you go all the way up there throughout this whole sequence, right? And so because of that rising line, we feel that push.
And we experience that as dancers. We experience that tension. Mm-hmm. And I find it so interesting that it has these sharp, again, the contrast between the straight lines and the sharp turns, contrasting with the other sections of the dance, which are much more circular, especially the opening section. And yet the music doesn't really have that angularity. It just has this intensity and build up.
Yeah.
So let's take a minute just to listen to all three parts one more time so we can enjoy the tune and listen how the A tells you to arrive for that two-hand turn and how the B becomes more lyrical and the C builds to a climax.
Okay, here we go.
Shouldn't have clapped because, of course, with the lag, it's at the wrong time for you.
I heard it at the right time.
Fatal mistake, forgetting about the Zoom time lag. Okay, So let's get people's videos on. Let's go and gallery view so we could see everybody, and Danny could share some questions and thoughts. I know some things have come in the chat, but I didn't get to read
And
them as we moved along.
so in addition to Danny, that I've got some questions too. But before we move on to questions and answers, first of all, I want to say thanks. This is so much fun. And secondly, I want to give a little preview for what's coming in the weeks ahead, while other folks are thinking about questions they want to ask and putting them into the chat. So in 2 weeks, it's going to be this evening will be led by Daniel Popowich, and at the end of the Q&A, I'm going to have him give a little shout out about what he's going to talk about regarding music theory for country dancers. And I just want to mention that this Saturday, CDNY is holding a concert, a virtual concert that is going to be the music of Jared Kirkpatrick, who is a noted contra dance musician with a lot of variety and flexibility. Okay, so you've had your opportunity to take a look and put some things into the chat box. And if I may, I would like to start off by asking you, Cynthia, you were just doing that space at the beginning of the phrase in Mary Kay, you know, and you said, you know, you want to clap there. What is the work that a musical rest does? Like you were talking about that in rehearsal, like what?
Oh, yeah. So it's very easy to think of a rest as like it's time to go out for lunch, or like I said, or they like have a martini or something like that, right? But it's not. A rest is just silence, but it's silence within a moving line, right? So that the timeline doesn't stop. Things don't just come to a halt. It's really, you know, in music and as in life, actually, you have sound and you have silence, but they don't negate each other. So it's just a moment of breath, or a moment of quiet, but still within this musical line that's always moving. It's like the train is always moving. So that's the beauty of rest. They're not vacation time.
So let me begin by calling on Sarah Muntz had a question. Sarah, do you want to ask your question about the choice of these dances? You can
Yes, I love all of these dances, and it reminds me how much I miss dancing. But I was wondering if there was a particular reason that you chose all three of them. They're all contemporary dances. None of them are from Playford.
Right. It was just my vision for this, that it was a way of narrowing the scope of dances to consider. And actually, originally, I was thinking of focusing on some contemporary composers that we hear their names but don't really know who they are. So I was thinking more of making the session about Dave Weisler and who he was, and maybe put his photo up. But as Cynthia and I have worked on this, we got a little away from that idea, but we still wanted to feature. Some of us know a lot of the composers if you've gone to camps and gone to dances in different places, but some of us really don't, so they're just names to us. So the idea was to feature them, and also because we are at home and we have the time to just really listen to the music, and in a way that when we're dancing, we can't give it our deepest attention sometimes.
I would just add to that, Margaret, just thinking a little bit about it. Dance historians have often begun to talk about this period as a period of modern English country dance as distinctive in terms of its pacing, its timing, its energy from some of the earlier Playford dancing. And I'm wondering if that actually speaks to the synergy that you find in this more contemporary dance style between the music and the patterns. Just something to think a little bit about. There was another question from somebody, from Deborah Franzblau. She was going to ask Margaret about calling. Deborah?
Okay, I guess I will unmute, but I'm not going to unmask for this question.
No problem.
So, um, so when you talk about the music and the dancing, you know, it's wonderful. And I think not all dancers really get to appreciate the music as much as you're describing. And what I want to ask is, what do you think you can do as a caller to get dancers to focus more on the music and really use that resource and really feel what you're talking about?
Well, I do think if there's a particular place that you want to encourage dancers to feel the music and listen for it, like for example, that cast into the orbit in at the beginning of Mary Kay, you can you can highlight one section of the music, and you can uh, as you're doing that, you can demonstrate that part and bring attention to what you want people to be listening to. So I think it helps to demos are great, and highlighting something very specific. But a lot of it just takes time and repetition, and really getting to know and feel the dances and feel relaxed enough that you can listen to the music.
You know, I think, you know, they always say the music will tell you what to do, but honestly, I think that's 100% true. And I think that oftentimes, you know, as dancers get to know the melodies, and they can sort of get used to allowing the melodies to carry them where they need to go, as opposed to, you know, we're all such intellectual people and we think all the time, right? But to really let that melody sort of take you over in a sense, and give yourself to the melody and allow the melody to move you where you need to go. You know, like a support in a funny kind of way. Yeah.
Cynthia, that reminds me of something you brought up in rehearsal, which was things that good musicians do to support dancers, and how it makes it satisfying. Can you name some things that musicians do that supports dancers, and makes things satisfying, and maybe some examples of things that make it less satisfying and are less supportive?
Right. So, I mean, I talked about it a little bit earlier, which was musicians actually breathing with the dancers, and the musicians understanding when a dance phrase, the choreographic phrase, comes to an ending, that the music actually has to come to an ending, to this cadence. You know, like if you set a metronome, you know, click, click, clicking away, it might actually be totally annoying because it wouldn't really take into account that kind of ebb and flow that the dancers and musicians need. And sometimes I've experienced musicians that ignore the dancers, or just are just carried away by the tune and by what's happening with them, as opposed to really seeing how does the tune fit in with what's happening on the floor. And if you look at the dancing as you're playing, or as the caller is calling it, even like, I mean, I always like when the caller asks me or another musician to play the melody along with the teaching of the dance, because that allows me to easily, because I don't have to worry about accompaniment and getting all fancy schmancy, right? But I can just play the melody and watch what's happening on the floor, and and connect the melody with what I see on the floor, so that it becomes more than just the notes on the page and the rhythm and all that nonsense, right? But it really becomes seeing it as this other creature that matches the dancing. And I think it's very easy for bands to just become insular and just care about the tune, which is wonderful and great, but it doesn't really connect with the ebb and flow of the dancing. Yeah.
That's
That's why we encourage apprentice musicians to come out when weeks they're not playing and be on the dance floor, which of course Cynthia dances a lot as well as plays music. And that's part of why I meant to mention in the very beginning, but one of the reasons I asked Cynthia to join me in this, because she really feels the knows the dances as a dancer as well as a musician.
Yeah. And I have to say, sometimes I'm just like, oh my God, are those musicians like listening?
So Cynthia, what you described in the musician, getting to cue along as the caller is teaching the track, and how that helps you as a musician put it together, that's a revelation for me right now. And I'm really glad you said that, because as a caller, I'm thinking about what it's doing for the dancers. But of course, you as a musician need to learn how the pieces fit together too. And by watching, that's
Right.
a great thing to know.
The thing is, like when I teach piano lessons, if a piano student has to do this, right? Right? Something really simple like that. And they can practice that and it can just be like, oh my God. But I'm like, no, you have to play that, but you have to hear the melody so that it already you're practicing, And then all of a sudden you're just not clunking away. And it's the same thing playing for the walkthrough of the dance, because you can pattern and fit the melody in with the movement of the dance.
Darren Douglas, in an interview with us, explained the joy she gets in knowing that with her violin, she could basically take the audience with her with a few notes. In the rehearsal, you talked a little bit about how you were going to play Miles of Smiles. And at one point, you talked about how it would sound if it were regal and how it might sound if it were a little more playful. Could you try demonstrating for us the different ways you would play it if you wanted it to sound more regal and then more playful?
All right. Here, wait. Let me just find it again. Sorry, I put it away. Hold on.
You can pretty much do it with any dance with this.
Right. So if I was going to play it, like we talked about it being frisky. But if I was going to play, like, so I feel that kind of frisky, like bouncy a little bit. But if I was going to play it more regal. So maybe it wouldn't have the bounciness to it. It would be a little bit more legato, maybe a little slower. Yeah.
But it affects our bodies when we're dancing.
Absolutely.
Speaking to us.
And for callers, if the band plays the tune with a totally different mindset than the caller is thinking, it's horrible for them, right? If the caller wants it, right, and the band plays, then like how does a caller tell the band what they really want? And that's the caller's challenge.
Very nicely and politely is recommended.
Right, it's hard for callers.
This is wonderful. We're going to pause for a sec so that we get a chance to bring everybody into gallery view and take a moment to look ahead a little bit. I just want this to keep going, but I also want to make sure that we let Daniel tell us a bit about what he's doing in 2 weeks for his presentation. Daniel, take it away for a sec.
Thank you, Dorothy, from the other room. So actually this week is going to be a great segue into what I hope to do 2 weeks from now. And I'll explain it by telling you how it came about. I think it was a year ago, fall of 2019. I was having a conversation with a fellow dancer at a Tuesday night dance, explaining why a jig, a 6/8 tune, was only 2 steps per measure, not 6. And I realized then that just thinking what I see on the dance floor, that there is a disconnect between the structure of music, the time signatures, which are probably the thing dancers most connect with, the rhythm. And there's a little disconnect there. So my next opportunity to call, which was January of this year, I did a program that was a survey of time signatures. I had 2, 2, 4, 4, 6, 8, 9, 8, 3, 2, 3, 4, just about everything we dance. And I even brought a little projector and I projected the sheet music and I spent a minute talking about the time signature and what that meant to us as dancers. And at least one person really loved it. who's here now, and I won't call her out by name, Ellen. And when Dorothy started up this lore, at least one person said, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if we could expand on that?" So I want to start a little revolution for dancers to have a bit better understanding of the music, kind of at a lower level. Today we talked about sort of at a gut level about how the music moves us through the dance. I'm going to take it a step down and actually look at music and how to break it down. And hopefully you'd be able to do things after this. You'd be able to do things like take a ball booklet. If you ever had a ball booklet and you see, oh, there's 3 bars to do this, actually know how to break that down. What does that actually mean? Oh, 3 bars of a 9/8 tune. What does that mean for these next series of steps? So, or that, wait a minute, what does that mean if I only have 4 bars to get from here to there in a 2/2 dance? That means I have 8 steps, which means I have to open up my gate to be able to cover that distance. Things like that. So, and it will end beautifully with a warning from Mickey Mantle. And if you're wondering how I've tied Mickey Mantle into a talk of English country dancing, you'll have to come back 2 weeks from now.
Tune in next time. Meantime, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Daniel. Meantime, I want to give thanks to our presenters. What a lively and dynamic duo you guys have been. Love the music, just love it. And I'm gonna, from here, I'm gonna back out a little bit, and let's just do some, feel free to take yourself off mute, and let's do some just general question and answer and socializing now. Cynthia, Margaret, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you, Dorothy, for putting this series together, bring the concept of it, and collect all the work you do to put each week together. And thank you, Danny and Jeff. Can people unmute themselves? Have we given them the power to do that?
They have.
Yes, I think you have.
And yes, if you can understand the accent.
Go on, Anne, you're on.
Good morning, everybody. I know it's evening for you, but it's mid-morning here in Australia on a nice sunny morning.
Good morning.
For tuning in from Australia, Anne.
That's great. I've done it a couple of times and really enjoyed it. It's nice to be able to hear you all, even if I can't come and dance with you. I liked the perspective talk from Daniel, because being a Scottish country dance teacher trained, I no longer Scottish country dance, but there was a lot of emphasis put on rhythm of dancing. And we recently danced, because we are dancing here, the same dance to a reel and a jig, and have a look what difference it makes to people, even if they don't know what it is.
Well, you know, oftentimes in contra dance music, contra dance bands will play a dance, you know, and they oftentimes play 2 or 3 tunes for one dance. They'll start out with a 6/8 tune and then end up with a 4/4 tune. And it changes the energy of everything in the dancing, because the steps are just a little faster, and because the energy of the tune, because a 6/8 tune, it'd be da 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 da, and all of a sudden you go da 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 da, and there's always a kind of energy that infuses the dancers when that happens. So I think that that's a really interesting marriage between 6/8 and 4/4.
Cynthia, I have a technical question.
Yeah.
Autumn and Amherst and Barnes.
Yes.
Is the wrong time signature in there, doesn't he?
Well, I could answer that because I talked to Kathy Talvity about that. And that's why I mentioned it is 4 steps to the bar.
Right. I've always saw it as 4/4.
That's not the rule that she and Philippe go by. And both of them agreed that, and in fact, she feels that many people play the music too quickly now, but the tutu matched their sense of the timing of the dance, is the way she put it to me. When it was published in CDSS News, the editor also tried to talk her into switching to publishing it as a 4/4 tune, but she and Philippe held fast, and for them it is a 2/2.
So if people are wondering, like, what in the Sam Hill does that mean? 2/2 versus 4/4. So what it means is it's the pulse of the music. So if I play in 2/2, I'm gonna play it in 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Right. So you feel those bigger pulses. But if I think it in 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a different kind of energy in that. There's like everything is chopped up a little bit more than if it's in 2. It's a little bit more gracious in 2. When you feel 2 pulses as opposed to 4 pulses.
Paul Ross notes that you can take a look in Freed's The Bone Crusher, the same dance in the Bone Crusher, the same dance is set to a jig, a reel, and a waltz. I'm reminded, Gene Murrow and I sat down at one point and listened to some of the Cecil Sharp recordings in the late teens, and the tunes were often done like at 126 beats to a measure that we now do at 104. Robin at one dance festival did both and showed people it feels like an entirely different dance. Right. It is the same dance, the same music, but done with a very different pacing. It's experienced very differently.
Right, right. So the pulse actually makes a huge difference.
Well, I was just going to say that Fried set the dance to those 3 different meters so that dancers would have a chance to experience how the change in meter changes the experience of the dance. And it's actually a dance pattern that she wrote. And it's quite instructive. It really makes a tremendous difference, as you would imagine. Cynthia, I wanted to ask you a question.
Yeah.
You've been using a language which is very familiar and comfortable for musicians to use in order to describe the music in a way that's meaningful for dancers. So you say question and answer and a rising line and so on and so forth. So you've been giving piano lessons, but at some point it would be wonderful if you were to put together a lesson for callers that introduced them to this language so that they could look at and listen to the music that they teach dances to with the same ability to draw out insights, because they would then have that language.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Next
I'm not assigning it to you. Yeah. I'm not assigning it to you, but I'm just inviting you to do it because I would love to take
that sounded like an assignment to me, Cynthia.
I know. The thing is I'm a little bit of a fake because I don't know the dances well enough. I'm not a caller. I don't study the dances. When I play for a dance, I'm a very kinetic, in the moment person. And so I don't know the dances well enough, but if I work with Margaret and she's saying, well, this is happening and that's happening, I'm like, oh yes, of course, because the music is doing this and this and this. So you're actually asking me to study dances.
Cynthia, you are the real thing.
Oh, well, good. Thank you. But I think about music in this way. I mean, I think about it all the time. Because to me it's really storytelling, and I see stories, I hear stories, so that's why the phrasing and all of that stuff, because I began to realize that the more you get down to the smaller details, when you really identify the small details, the little phrases and the rising line and all of these things, it enhances the big picture, because then everything is not general. It's very specific. So in a sense, Paul, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think that this idea of the marriage of the music and the dance, and that's why I brought up the thought that in English country dancing, a tune is written for a dance, or a dance is written for a tune, so that the composer has heard, or no, the dance writer, the choreographer has heard in the melody these things that I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I mean, I think if everybody thought more in that way, it would make dance much more pleasurable and actually easier in a kind of way.
And what I was saying is that you are bringing a language to this conversation that helps us express these ideas.
Right.
We express them in such vague manner, but
Right.
you can say that we're going from G to high B, and suddenly it becomes crystal clear what's happening.
Right. But I'd be happy to do that. I have a plan and go, oh my God.
Cynthia, we expect an outline.
No, I'm really bad at outlines. I'm really bad at that.
You know that what the definition of stress is when your mouth says yes and your brain's saying no.
So here's a topic. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I want to pop in and just say how much I appreciate, and I've told Paul in the past, it's probably more than 3 years ago, but Margaret and Cynthia and Paul, when you talk about dances and the music going together to become this sort of perfect whole, I love when you mention texture and color and life and breath, because it's just all there and it's swirling, but you got to catch a hold of it. And when somebody gives you that little anchor of like the orbit, like how much time, and like, check it out. Can you stretch it long? Oops, too far. So you have to hurry the next part, but to play with that and describe it. So it's not, everything is not the same.
No, it's
and
not.
It's much more exciting and fun when those little things or those really smooth places pop up to just delight us.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks.
You're welcome.
Well, that was serious. I was going to move to the non-serious, which I almost feel bad about, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Please do.
So Cynthia and Margaret, you talked about dippy tunes. So I would love to hear what are some dippy tunes? Name some dippy tunes. I want to hear yours.
And do they make for dippy dances?
They probably make for dippy dancers.
Cynthia, you better stick with historic material.
I know. I block them out so desperately that I don't have them. I can't even tell you. It's when a tune like doesn't go anywhere. Just like keep saying the same thing over and over and over again, and I wish I could say the name of a tune. Like the A section says something really interesting, and the B section has to say something even more interesting to balance it. And and talking about question and answering, the A is kind of the question, and oftentimes the B goes off in this whole big thing. But if the B doesn't go off in a whole big thing that's of interest and harmonically interesting, or then.
Okay, so what's the name of, I've forgotten the name of the dance that's all done in one line, like the first couple are facing each other and their partners are behind them?
Dargison.
Oh, but that's a great tune.
Am I right?
No, Dargison's a great tune. And it's a great dance. And I'm going to call it again the next time we're dancing, Lynn.
That's when I'll take my bathroom break, Daniel.
That's a trance tune. That's different.
Well, make sure to put a clapping dance right after that, Lynn.
I like clapping. Oh, I don't like patty cake.
How about the one with the sheepskin hay. It's like, it's the same da-dum, da-da-da-da-da, da-dum, da-dum, da-da-da-da-da.
Picking up sticks.
But
Yeah.
Yes.
that's not a dip. I don't. To me, that's not a dippy tune.
No?
Even though
But it's so
repetitive,
repetitive.
it
Okay.
is.
Well, the switch tune is more repetitive, but it's still not dippy.
What saves it from being dippy, Cynthia, in your opinion?
When it says something interesting and it evolves into something interesting. If it just keeps repeating the same little phrase, oh gosh, if I had gotten this question earlier, I could have done a little research. But I can't.
What's the
Your
chance?
homework.
I love Take a Dance, and that is an amazing tune. And then there's another tune.
Or Boggy is the one.
Or Boggy. There's a dippy tune.
Right. Oh,
Or
God,
Boggy.
all right, hold on. I have to see what these tunes are. Hold on.
Now, Daniel, you and I have a lively disagreement about whether Or Boggy is a dippy tune.
I don't know why anyone would ever dance Or Boggy when there's Take a Dance.
Tom Amicy has put up Ferguson, great tune, don't like the dance.
All right, I have to find Or Boggy, then I'll know what you're talking about. 298. Okay, hold on.
Cynthia will play it for you.
Yeah, then you'll
Oh, does she have to?
No, she doesn't have to.
No, I'll play it, but you know, it's like Or Boggy.
And then we can vote and that will finalize the matter.
I thought it was.
Seal it right up.
We'll take a vote.
All right, sorry.
I might end up having to call it right after Dargis.
The thing is, everybody else probably knows how Or Boggy goes. Oh yeah, it's a little bit on the spectrum, I have to say.
See?
Hold on. Sorry. All right, here we go.
Oh, God.
I don't know. I don't think this is dippy. I like it.
That's right, Cynthia.
Yeah, but not play Take a Dance. I mean, there's just no comparison.
Well, all right. Take a dance. Hold on.
And Len, the last time I called Dargison,
Take a Dance
we
is
had
in-
like 5 lines
in the other book.
up, and everyone was dancing with great joy while you were in the bathroom.
All right, I'm in the trips. Let me just find Take a Dance. Oh my God, no, I love this tune. Are you kidding me?
No, that's what I'm saying. Take a Dance is amazing.
Oh yeah, this is great. And then it
Compared
goes
to Or Boggy?
Oh yeah, compared to Or Boggy, Take a Dance is like heaven. But I don't mind Or Boggy.
Yeah,
so much.
but play Or Boggy as a minor jig.
Oh.
Much better.
It is much better. It's much better. It's like
Where would you rate Jean's Gamble?
Jean's Gamble.
It's a real short one.
Wait, is that in the second book? I don't know Jean's Gamble.
I think it's in the third one.
Oh, the third one? Did you know I have a tune in the third book?
What is your tune in the third book?
I forget the name of it now. Hold on.
That
Cynthia's tune.
I think it's
No,
White Christmas.
It's called Trip to no, it's called Home House something. Newfound Home.
Newfound Home.
It's really
With
quite
Sharon's dance.
Is Sharon Green still here? She wrote a dance to it. I don't know if Sharon's still here. She was here for a second. Anyway.
On and off twice.
All right. So I don't know what the question was. What was it? Oh, Jean.
By the way, Jenny Vaughn says that there was another version of Or Boggy.
Oh,
Well,
called Jean with a G or a
version in D.
oh. H-I-J.
Jean like Jean Merle.
Oh, G. All right, hold on. You would think I have all these memorized, but I don't.
Absolutely not. You know, actually, while you're getting that, when I first became an editor, my boss said, the more I edit, the more I cannot remember how to spell things and have to look up things in the dictionary. I think it goes with the territory.
I know. So here's Jean's Gamble.
Sharazula Marazula. What's wrong with that? That's a good old Renaissance tune.
Okay, so for me, an early tune like that, I could do a lot with that tune. I like that tune. It's like the Roundabout the Cold Fire, those kind of early tunes. I can do a lot with those tunes. Yeah. Sometimes like the
Glad to hear you.
Orly's breaking up, but she's glad to hear you.
I wrote it.
What?
I wrote the dance.
Oh, your sound is terrible. Who is that?
Orly saying that she wrote the dance, Jean's Gamble.
Dark Side of the Moon.
Oh, I like that too. Oh, you did, Orly. I like that tune. So thank you. So anyway. Yeah, so each tune has its own character. Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of the tricky thing about playing for English country dances, that the tunes are all very, very, very different. And they each have their own character. And if you're an inexperienced player, you don't know that. You don't know the character of each tune, and it's very easy for you to play it out of character. And everyone else is like, how could you possibly play it like that? But you don't know, right? You don't know. Right,
And it depends on the instrument.
Right, Jean Monroe, right? Right, but inexperienced players don't know, and it's such a vast repertoire. I mean, you have tunes from 1650, and you have tunes that were written yesterday, in all these different styles. It's very difficult in many ways.
Well, this was just wonderful. I just loved this lively discussion. This, shall we say, friendly disagreements and friendly agreements and jokes. Did you see Val Medvey talking about 2 weeks to certify the vote for Dippy Dances?
Did we disagree?
Or Tom Medvey, rather. Anyway, I just want to say I'm gonna let us wrap it up and call it a night. But oh my gosh, did I have fun here? And I think I'm speaking for a lot of people when I say what a fun night. Thank you, Margaret Bary. Thank you, Cynthia Shaw.
You're welcome.
Lots of fun.
Thank you.
So just as another general announcement, I got approval from the board to do more of these in the spring. So we will continue on the same first and third Thursdays, or whatever it is that we're on. Is this the third Thursday? Whatever it is, we're doing it again in the spring.
Excellent.
So tune in 2 weeks.